Welcome everybody to another wonderful Monday night of Chewin the BBQ Fat. Guys, I'm so excited. We're going to have a great show tonight. We're going to be talking KCBS, all about KCBS. We've been talking about this for a long time. I'm so excited. Emily is here. She's going to be on tonight. We're going to have a bunch of a good conversation about barbecue, about KCBS, about where we're headed with this awesome sport that we do of competition barbecue. So I'm going to bring her on in a second. Make sure you get ready to ask questions. Once again, man, Wes Garrett, holy smokes. I didn't know you even watch the show anymore. Glad to see you on, bud. Yep, here we go, Matt. But like the page, share the page, do whatever we can to get this out to as many people as possible because it's going to be a great night. And here's our opportunity. It's not very often that you get a CEO to come on and talk about what you love to do. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Emily on. Hey, Emily, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for spending your Monday night with us here on Chewin the BBQ Fat.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited to have you on. And,
I'm glad to be here.
I know last time we had an issue and, what was so cool, I told everybody, I was like, she so wanted to be on. She made a point to make sure this was going to happen. So here we go. Let's
absolutely. Yeah. Well, and thanks for the reschedule. There's always something when you have young children. And anyway, that was no different. So I'm glad to be here tonight instead.
That's awesome. Well, tell everybody a little bit what you do at KCBS.
Well, I tell you what, I wish I had a crystal ball for this year because this year has been a little bit different. But in terms of what I do at KCBS, honestly, it is very different day to day. But at the end of the day, what I'm really trying to do is help set the strategy, build the future for KCBS, and really leverage the feedback that we get from members. I think all of you know that I came here from Smithfield Foods and really had more of the cook's mindset, simply from what I did with helping promote barbecue for Smithfield. And so when I stepped into this role, one of the things that was interesting and fun for me is really thinking about all the different parties that it takes to put on a barbecue contest. It takes the pitmasters, the cooks for sure, but it takes the judges, it takes the reps, it takes contest organizers, and everybody has to be just as invested. And it takes KCBS. So that's been one of the fun challenges for me, is to try to understand things from each of those parties' perspectives, because I think people tend to get very passionate about where they think about things through. So if you're a cook, you're thinking about it this way. If you're a judge, you're thinking about it this way. And so I have to be able to help people think about it from all of those lenses. And that's one of the things that I enjoy the most. Another part of my role is literally to make sure that the day-to-day functions of everything happens. KCBS is a nonprofit. We rely on our members. We want to build new programs for members. We want to continue to build partnerships with brands and companies that make sense to be supporting barbecue. So it's really an interesting job. It's been a lot more challenging in a lot of good ways than what I even anticipated. So, and honestly, carrying on a legacy, that's also something that I take very seriously. We're fortunate to still have Carolyn Wells with us. And so it's been fun to be able to ask her questions and understand kind of where the roots of things came from, but then to be able to take it into the future based on current and future trends.
Awesome. Well, so one of the questions I get to ask you then, what is the biggest difference going from the corporate world of Smithfield to to KCBS, which is, I don't know if I wouldn't necessarily call it a huge corporation, right? So what's the biggest difference to you?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So, even though KCBS is the largest sanctioning body globally, it's still a nonprofit. And I think one of the biggest challenges is that it's very reliant upon volunteers and the board members and a small staff to make it all happen. So in terms of my biggest challenge, that's probably one of them. And one of the biggest differences is that you go from, and even, in what I did at a big company, it was still a relatively small team, so we still had to be very entrepreneurial and, you know,
Mhm.
literally figure out how to get stuff done. But you had a big company and a big brand behind you. So now we've got the big brand. You know, we have well established a brand within our world, but just trying to get it done with people who are very passionate about it, a lot of volunteers. And that's also one of the things that I like the best about it too, though, because everybody who is involved is passionate. Some of it more positive than others, but you know, for most people, barbecue contests are what they do for their hobby, and it's become truly their passion and their sport. And so when that happens, people are really vocal, either about what they like or what they don't. And so it's my job to try to help listen. Um, and to use constructive feedback to help build programs, again, for our members and for our partners that make the most amount of sense.
Right. Well, this year has been crazy. We all know that. I
Yes.
think what it has done has made it one of the most incredible points chases that we've seen in a while. You know, I wanted to talk to you about what are your thoughts of the points chase that just wrapped up this weekend? Brad getting basted just came in and finished it off.
Yep.
What is your take on this points chase this year?
Well, honestly, you know, in oh gosh, probably like in May and June, I started hearing people say, well, this year's team of the year doesn't matter. It's going to have an asterisk behind somebody's name. Well, and I would challenge that thinking with this year's competition was more fierce than ever, because if you think about it, there's fewer contests, so there's fewer bad contests that you can drop. You really can't go bottom feeding anymore. Likewise, at every contest that did happen, the fields were really stacked. So I actually think this was a more difficult year to excel. And so I'm really proud of everybody who continued to try to chase. You know, I think you saw it both in the Master Series and in the Backyard Series. Just wow, what an exciting season. You know, at one point it seemed like Joe definitely had it in the bag, and then all of a sudden Brad kept coming, you know, and the fact that they're changing contests at the last couple of weeks to see who could get, you know, to get to doubles and things like that, that is exciting. That helps to me. That shows that the passion is still there.
Mhm.
You know, and it helps refute this idea that the year doesn't matter. Again, I think that this year was defined by passion, and I actually think that this year was harder than it has been in the past because of that.
Yeah.
So, you know, and for our backyard teams, again, what a great opportunity for them to be able to finally get a chance to shine, um, and to duke it out amongst themselves, both for the Team of the Year program, but also at the KCBS World Invitational.
Oh yeah, and we're going to get into the invitational a little bit, but um, are you do you follow it? How closely were you following it? Because I know you're in the Midwest, right? You're in Kansas
Yep.
City, right? So did you keep up with anything that was going on in the Southeast side of things? Because as we discussed a couple shows ago, it seemed like there was a Midwest and a Southeast where the main place where contests were going, and you
Definitely.
saw people coming from all over, and both, you know, Chris Schaefer's on here. I know he's sitting there saying that the Midwest is better. Yeah, Midwest is great also, but we have some good teams here in the Southeast, and they were coming at the end too. It was just neat to see the different regions going at it, and then at the end of the day, the Midwest teams came to the East, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
finish strong with the double in Virginia. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Yes. So I was watching it. You
okay.
know, as I've said before, this is a passion for me too. Um, and though I see all angles of everything, I still really get excited about what's going on among the teams. And many of these teams I know from my previous experience, even before I came to KCBS. I cheer for them all equally. I'll say that. um, But that said, I do think it's really exciting to see, how they're doing. And yes, seeing what was happening in the Southeast and along the Mid-Atlantic was pretty cool. One of the things, and even the Texas teams going further than they've gone in quite a while. I mean, that's been exciting too, to see
Yep.
all of that. I loved even seeing some of the teams going out to Wyoming and certainly up to the Dakotas. Again, teams are going further than they perhaps have in the past. And I mean, I know that adds expense for folks, and I know that it just makes it harder for them. But again, that really shows the passion, and that shows how much people want to win. And I just couldn't be more proud of everybody. The other thing that I think is really interesting too, especially in the Master Series, is that this year we saw differences in the individual categories.
Mm-hmm.
So, last year it was amazing that Boomerang
Right.
swept everything.
Right.
And this year it's kind of spread out a little bit. And even it changed. So you asked if I'd been tracking. Of course I was tracking. For one reason, because I've got to get ready to sign some of those checks, right? So,
Right.
um, so I was tracking everything even about 3 weeks ago, and I pulled where everything was at that time. And just this morning, as results were finally processed and everything, I looked at it again, and there were changes even among the top teams for the payouts. So it's just been really exciting to watch.
It really, and somebody said in here, Joel Fleetwood said the best part of the year was watching all the new teams come to the chase that you don't normally see,
That's
and that
right.
is so true. I mean, like there's, you had all the big hitters in there, and you also had some new teams coming in there, which I thought was really cool to watch and keep up with. So real quick before I forget to ask this question, I think it's a great question. It'll lead us into. Well, no, I'm going to hold off. Mike McGlynn, I'm going to get to your question in a little bit. So speaking of points chases, this has been an incredible points chase this year. Awesome. Y'all have just introduced at KCBS a new points chase system going in for 2021. I love it. I think it's a great idea. That people are always talking this, that, and the other, but I think it's great. Can you give us a little bit of insight what you're doing with the new mini chase? I don't know what y'all are calling them, but I think it's awesome.
Yeah. So the idea behind this is really that, there are certain teams that are able to chase the whole year through. And so that will still remain the same. And let me also say, this is for the Master Series only. I know you also have a lot of backyard listeners. I'll just be real candid. We just launched the backyard program, so we kind of want to see how that's going to go before we start adding extra things onto it.
Yep.
But for the Master Series, we've had our KCBS chase for the last several years. One thing that we did differently for 2020 was we added that world champion to the title. And again, as we talk to people, that was an easy thing to do. It's like, why weren't we calling it that? It definitely is,
Right.
So that we added on for 2020. For 2021, this idea of adding on the extra chases is that it gives people, even if you're not able to chase the entire year through, you might be able to chase for a shorter time period. So you talk about some of those teams that have come into this mix that maybe weren't normally part of it. This is a great example of why something like this is important, because it gives those teams that maybe can't do the whole
Mm-hmm.
year, but they could do, a couple months. It gives them the opportunity to chase within those different segments.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the thinking, and to
I
just
love it.
draw additional excitement. Yeah.
I love it. For me, I have two kids in travel baseball, right? So we just finished up
Understand that.
we just finished up last night with baseball for the season. And now I have more time that I can spend going to cook. Whereas in the spring, I'm pretty much done from March to June. There's not much I can do. But this is going to give us an opportunity, somebody like myself, an opportunity to go, I'll go cook more during this time because I know that I'm not going to be able to do it later on, which I think it would be really cool. But should the team of the year be named world champion? Yes, of course. But anyway, I love what you're doing with the points chases. And how is that what's going to happen if you win a segment, does that help you towards the team of the year, or is it just it's done at the end of that segment, that time frame?
Well, so it's still, I mean, your points will count during that chase, and then they will
Okay.
also count for your year long. So, in theory, you can chase for a specific time period, and you can still stay in for the full chase. It doesn't stop. Your points don't stop, but we will be able to segment that out just in our toy points for those specific chases. And I've got to tell you all, we have got a fantastic group of board members. I have to be giving a quick little shout out to David McAllister of 913 Barbecue. He has really helped us be able to do all this stuff on our website and work with our IT providers on that. And it has really, and Charles Cridlin from Wolf's Revenge, I mean, the two of them head up our tech committee, and they have just done a tremendous job um, of really being able to figure out how to do all of this. And, I really can't thank them enough.
Yeah, I think it's great. I'm just glad to see there's changes being made. That you're thinking, you're hearing what people are talking about. I know people want to do the regions and the different stuff like that, but hey, look, we're trying something and it's good,
Yeah.
and let's just roll with it. So in that, would y'all have a contest coming up in a week or two?
We do.
All right. Let's
I think we are the only world championship that's actually been able to go this year. Well, I guess Houston didn't happen, did it? Not in the same way. They had the rodeo. So yeah, this has been a really exciting program to work on. We've learned along the way. I think we'll see things that we like, things that maybe we might adapt for next year. But it has been really an all hands on deck process to get this contest going. So the KCBS World Invitational is going to be November 13th and 14th in Mayetta, Kansas, pretty centrally located in the country. So if people are coming from all over, they can get there. And we are just thrilled to be able to A, still have it, B, to be able to have it for both Master Series and Backyard. So this will be the first time that we've really been able to incorporate the backyard teams to this degree. So that's really exciting. And they are perhaps some of the most enthused to come out for it. So that's been awesome. We've been in communication with the teams basically throughout this whole process. Hey, do you feel comfortable coming? The judges, and for the most part, we've had people say, we are coming. There have been some that have had to drop out for different reasons, and we totally understand that. But for the most part, people are really looking forward to coming. We feel very confident in having it because we've got our own safety procedures that if you've been to a contest anytime in the last few months, what those look like. And the facility that we're having the contest, it also has pretty significant, requirements as well. So with all of that, we feel really comfortable having it. It's also not a public facing event. So, the teams will keep themselves separate. The judges will keep themselves distanced, and we're going to have a great time.
Stupid question I know you don't know the answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
Somebody asked me, when will y'all reevaluate the rules or whatever for different areas? Like I know Georgia has one set of rules, Kansas has another set of rules. Are y'all gonna keep it the same, or are you gonna let the states dictate what they do?
Are you talking about KCBS rules?
No, the COVID.
Oh, okay. I was going to say the rules should be the same everywhere.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking when you're talking about keeping everything separate, like the COVID rules and the COVID protocols. Somebody asked me that question. I was like, well, I'll ask her anyway.
Well, here's what I will say about all of that. Obviously, I don't have any control or say over the COVID rules or protocols for Kansas or Missouri. However, what I would tell folks is make the best decision for you and your family. And that may change as time goes on. My son has tested positive for COVID. Fortunately, it was very short-lived. He didn't really have any symptoms, but everybody's different. And that is what I think is so hard about what we're going through, is that you just don't know how it's going to impact you. And when it does, even though we hear about all this stuff on the media, when it does happen to you and your family, nobody's really telling you what to do other than just don't go anywhere. But that means different things when you've got kids in school. And anyway, that's a different topic. But
Right.
so no, we feel really confident that we are going to be able to keep people safe. I mean, you're going to have to wear your mask. I don't love it either, but we just have to do it. These are the rules of engagement right now. Um, the judges will have their gloves on, literally throughout the time that they're in there. They'll be changing out fresh gloves. We'll be changing out table coverings, wiping boxes still. All that stuff is really meant to keep everybody safe, but to still keep doing what we love, and that's
Exactly.
barbecue.
The
Yeah.
way I look at it, as long as we can keep barbecuing, whatever.
Right.
As long as it's not so inclusive, which it's not. I think you've done a great job, and everybody's been on board. I think everybody at first was a little whatever, but now it's like, you know what? Whatever. Give me 10 more seconds so I can wipe down my box and be done with it.
Yes.
But great. All right. So is there anything else you want to talk about your invitational or
Well, I will say, if you haven't heard, we've got a prize purse of a little over $40,000 now, which again, really excited to have been able to work with partners like Smithfield, the National Turkey Federation, Old World Spices. We've got a little cocktail contest that's going to happen from Jack Daniels. So, and Solo Foods, they've actually come on board. We had a member, one of their leaders is a KCBS member and heard about all of this and said, this is amazing. I want to get behind it. So, it's just been really fun. And I think that there's been so many people that have just wondered, like, is this actually going to happen? And so
right.
there were a lot of people kind of holding out and waiting to see what was going to happen. But now that they know, okay, it's really a go,
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Speaking along these terms, with such good sponsorships that y'all have and that you've developed a good rapport with people, is there any talks of another Sam's type event where different category contests around the country and they bring it into is there anything like that even in the works or not, or is that whatever? I don't know.
So there's definitely thoughts about what we can do to continue to drive exciting programs for next year. I think we would all love to see some sort of opportunity for teams in different regions be able to compete against each other and then come head to head. So I'll tell you, there are certain things that we're definitely working on. And once we feel like we've got some programs that we think will be really strong and well received by members and partners, and we will definitely be rolling those out.
Perfect. Speaking of different regions, we've had different conversations throughout on the Chewin the BBQ Fat show throughout the past couple months about the different regions and the way the judging happens in different regions, the contest or the way they run, the scoring, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to change. Everybody, y'all, I'm going to talk about judging now for a second. So whatever, y'all just get excited about it. That's what all the questions have been about. How are y'all planning on the different regions and the judging trying to get on the same page, or do you feel they are all on the same page with each other? And what do you think about the judging process on those regions?
Yeah. So what I'll tell you is the judging, A, the rules, B, the judging procedures, the reps everything should be the same. I'm not going to lie. I know that right now it's not. Again, we listen to feedback. We hear that. I hear it. The board hears it. We all talk about it. And actually, even last month, we talked about it in the board meeting in open session. We are going to be working on some retraining programs. And we recognize that there may be inconsistencies happening. We know that there are across some of the different regions. And so over the next several months, that is definitely something that I will be working on, and I will be putting together a task force, if you will, across the membership to help figure out how we solve that. And so I think some of the people that really have said, I want to help, I want to be part of the solution. Those are the people that I can't tell you how much I appreciate, because it's easy for people to throw stones. It's easy to say, oh, the judges are bad. Well, not every judge is bad. And likewise, not every cook is your best cook. I know some people want to shoot me for saying that, but it's true. And so, from my perspective, as I see it, we have to be able to put programs together that are going to drive consistencies, but it also takes people that are willing to step forward and say, I want to offer constructive feedback. I want to make things better. I don't just want to complain. I say that to
Right.
my kids too.
I hear you. Yeah, that's something that I agree a lot with. I mean, there's only so much that KCBS can do. I feel like that I had a lot of contests. KCBS gets the blunt end or the brunt end of what they don't necessarily control. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But one question that Mike McGlynn asked: where in the country are you wanting to see more growth, as in competition, judging classes, etc.? Um, and are there any areas that you're seeing less participation?
That's a good question. I think it's hard to answer that question in this year, because 2020 has just had such an outsized impact on everything. So I think as we look at opportunities to really focus, I think to some degree, we'll have the opportunity to do it really nationally and internationally the same, because I think one of the positive things, if we can say that has come out of this past year has been that people are much more familiar and comfortable using video, Zoom, webinars, podcasts, all these different things. And so as we think about how we use tools like that, I think we can use them to really help drive the same messaging everywhere in the country. So we wouldn't necessarily be talking about specifically trying to drive, certain regional areas, per se, but really trying to grow everywhere, and in consistency. That said, I think there's definitely parts when you look at the South and the Southwest, there's huge regions, and
Mm-hmm.
so yes, we are in those regions, but I think those would be great regions to continue to grow. And thinking about some of the great programs that have happened in some of the northern states, and likewise Colorado, I look at some of those areas and I say they've got some really great contests that are not sure what they're going to do in the future, and we need to protect those. It's even come to my attention that Frisco, for example, which is a fan favorite for contests, as a city, they're not sure what they're going to do moving forward. So if you know anybody that should be rallying out there, do it. I think to me, that's one of the most immediate concerns that we should all have, is to make sure that these contests come back,
Right.
and
Because
yeah, go ahead.
I think people expect, or so Richard Croger said, will there be any more backyard competition next year? KCBS doesn't necessarily go out and y'all aren't putting on contests on your own. Y'all
Mm-mm.
are just the sanctioning body that organizers use to facilitate the contest, right? So
That's right.
you hear somebody say, how are y'all going to grow the area or the region? It's not, is it necessarily something that KCBS that y'all look at and say, hey, how are we going to go grow this? Or is this something that you want to sit back and say, hey, we're here for, because how do y'all grow? How do you grow an organization where you're not the one putting on the contest. You're not the one going out there trying to grow. You're hoping that organizers contact you to put on a good contest, correct?
Well, to some degree, yes. Now, I will say, I'm not the type of person that sits by waiting for the phone to ring. I'm a driver, so anybody that knows me knows that I earned my moniker, the little lady with the lead foot. So we are trying to drive hard and hot and fast, I guess, in a lot of different directions. And so part of that does come with some of the new programming, like, adding on the chase stages to the team of the year race, like trying to develop different programs, as we mentioned earlier, certainly adding backyard, our one meet contest, which we can talk about some more later.
Oh,
But those are some ways that we continue to try to grow. Membership is another big area where we try to grow. So continuing to bring new people into the fold, working with organizers to show them the benefit of having a KCBS sanctioned contest. Because yeah, you can have a barbecue contest, but there are reasons why especially on the team side, a cook team wants to go to a KCBS contest over something else because it counts towards the team of the year points chase. They know what they're going to get, whether they go anywhere in the country. There are benefits to working with KCBS as your sanctioning body. So those are definitely things that we're doing. We're even going to have a webinar, for example, this week with our organizers to talk about some of the new exciting things we've got going on for next year. And we've really tried to prove that we are every bit of a partner to the organizers as we are to the rest of our members, because, we know that they are trying to, for the most part, a lot of organizers are trying to raise money for a charity or something, and they're using the barbecue contest as a means to do so. So the more we can help them make their event attractive to the teams that are coming in, ultimately that's going to help them drive sponsorship for their events, things like that. So the more we can do to help keep those organizers going and know what benefits, we can help provide to them, those are all great ways for us to grow.
That's great. And I know you mentioned it, we're going to bring it up in a second, but y'all are adding a lot more. There's a lot more things that are incentives to come and cook one in the contest. And I think it's great. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
Paul Kellner's in the house saying hello. Sarah Walker's in here saying hello. How you doing, Sarah? Good to see you.
Hey, Sarah.
Madison, hey. But anyway.
Really tell Floyd I said hey.
Yes. That's awesome. So let's stay in this judging scene for a little bit, and then we'll move on. How did y'all go from the random draw or the chip draw to the average? Like, that seems to have changed a couple of times this year. What is the process that goes along to decide the best way to do things?
Yeah, well, I'll answer that. Ultimately, unfortunately, we were having a lot of trouble with the data. Again, 2020 is just, it's thrown so many curveballs at us. And one of those had to do with the fact of how judging was going and who was judging, and how much time perhaps had lapsed between their last judging. So, in working with our tech committee, as we were looking at the data, it wasn't making sense. It wasn't coming together the way that it should have each month for the seeding program to be rerun. So we decided that we would go back to the chip draw. And the reason for that is really to truly help get to randomization. And we know that that is what the teams, we listen even when people are filing formal complaints through or ideas by notifying the board. And certainly we hear a lot of feedback elsewhere as well. But, ultimately what we know is that the teams are really seeking randomization, and they want to know that they've got any shot to land on any table. And so that is kind of why we've decided at this time to go back to the chip draw, at least for the 2021 barbecue season. And that'll give us an opportunity to still be able to drive that randomization while also working through what does the future look like.
Right. I think it's great. And the thing that I love to hear is y'all are hearing what the cooks are saying. You're hearing what everybody's saying. You're hearing what the judge, because I hear the cook side. I don't really hear the judges side as much. So, what do the judges think about it? Do they care, or what is the judge's perspective on?
I would say from a judge's perspective, we don't hear nearly as much about it. Once they know where they're supposed to go, I can tell you, most judges that I have seen, and I have been to a lot of contests, and I have seen them take their oath, and I have witnessed their judging. They take their job just as seriously as the pitmasters do. And, yes, are there a few bad judges out there? Yeah, there are. But certainly, I think for the most part, everybody is doing the best that they can and, wanting to have a good experience. So I think the judges, at least from what I gather, the judges don't necessarily have a strong preference one way or the other.
Right. I think it's, I think it's interesting to hear both sides of the story. And, I think the cooks, we're very vocal about things, and y'all hear it and you respond to it, and y'all are making changes. So everybody that's listening, they hear your complaints and they're working. And I think it's great. That's what's so cool, is to hear how open you are about it. and another question I brought up to you earlier before we came on was um, the visibility of the board members and the board meetings, right? Is there a way moving forward that people will be able to have more interaction with the board meetings or whatever? But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so a couple of things I would say. We continue to get requests for more transparency, and we really are, as a group, trying to do more in open session so that people can hear what's going on. B, if you specifically want to address the board, that is something that's available every month. People can write in and request, an opportunity to present something or speak to the board. Certainly, I think our secretary does an amazing job of making sure that we are getting all of those meeting notes and videos out so that people can listen to it and respond. I mentioned earlier, I think one of the best ways of making sure that your voice is heard is to communicate with the board and to send an email. It's interesting. I always hear a lot of, well, I heard this at a contest this weekend. And I said, well, until it comes back to the board, it's just chatter. But if you truly have something that you want to raise, either as a concern or as an opportunity to make things better, please send an email to bod@kcbs.us. They are reviewed. We do talk about all of that stuff. And so I think that's the best way. And I also, as I've mentioned before, I think it's always best to think about, how would you suggest doing it differently? If you're not pleased with something, or if you've got an idea, help explain the rationale for why. I think when you do that, no matter what it is, whether it's barbecue or in your professional life or with your family, approaching things that way is so much better than just hurling complaints. It'll get you so much further. So I say that because I see a lot of things, both good and bad. And I think that would be my piece of advice, is in order to get the best response, think about it. Yeah, you might not like something, but tell us why and tell us how you might do it differently.
Awesome. There you go, guys. Right here. So what else would you want to talk about? I do want to reiterate what you just said earlier in the show, that you mentioned that there will be, y'all are coming up with programs to have more judge training throughout the region, throughout everything else. So that is something that y'all think about, because I think that's what I hear the most on this show is the hope of, once a judge becomes a judge, there's more training going involved. So that is something that you brought up that has been talked about, and you've heard that, right? So I just want to reiterate, because anybody that just came on, that's something that we discussed earlier. And I'm going to let you talk more about, because we did talk about it. What have you seen the biggest changes in judges this year in 2020 with the pandemic?
Sure.
I know there's a lot of different.
Yeah, I think honestly, if you look at our KCBS membership in our demographics, we skew older, especially in our judging population. And so when you think about the impact that COVID has on different segments, it definitely, unfortunately, has an outsized impact on many of the people that are in our judging core. And so when you think about that, it has been more difficult. There's been a couple factors really that have combined. A, it's been more difficult to get some people to come out, especially in certain regions, perhaps where COVID rates have spiked. B, because there have been fewer contests, many times the field increases significantly. And so now they need more judges, and they already had fewer judges to begin with. So when you think about that, those factors are not good. They have not contributed to helping the situation this year. And yet organizers have been excited about it. Teams have still have wanted to have the contest. Our reps have been really flexible to try to help accommodate the best they can. So, all of those things coming together have probably led to some of the difficulties that we have faced with judging in 2020. I do believe that it has given more opportunities for some of those newer judges to get out there and judge. And like it or not, those people need to judge more. so that they get that experience under their belt. I mean, I've judged more this year than I've judged in a long time, simply because I've wanted to help and step in when I can.
Right.
You know, especially if it's in an area that I can easily get to. And I wouldn't consider myself the world's most experienced judge, but I certainly have done it more this year. And I've loved it. And so, you know, again, when you try to think about things from the bigger picture, we've got to have more teams coming more often, including new teams. We've got to have more judges coming more often, including younger judges, or maybe not younger, but newer into their judging career. So I know that it hasn't necessarily been ideal for everybody in every situation. But again, when you step back and you think about it for the health of our sport, it's actually not a bad thing.
Right. I agree. 100%. Aaron, Stephen, you missed a lot, but some of the newest things coming in next year are going to be the new points chases. And another thing that I'm going to bring up now, which we were discussing earlier. When I go to a barbecue contest, I love the cook to cook barbecue. I'm there to cook a barbecue contest. I like my Friday nights. I like all this other stuff. But I know there's a lot of add-ons going on to contests these days.
Mm-hmm.
We were discussing beforehand. Y'all have a great idea, and I think we've seen a couple of them this year, like a rib burn and stuff like that. And you've kind of talked a little bit about it, but so I'm going to let you talk now about some of your add-on to contests that y'all are doing.
Yeah. So, you know, this our single meat contest, actually, that we kind of beta tested it, if you will, for 2020, and we started just with ribs, and the idea generated from some members, some cook teams, and working with the board, presenting some ideas on how would this work. You know, we want to be able to just cook an extra contest the night before. So we've tested it, and we've tested it a couple of different ways. We have done the one meat rib contest the night before in conjunction with an existing full Master Series contest. And then we've also had an opportunity to do at least one, if not two, standalone rib contests. And so, you know, we know that there's a lot of stuff going on the Friday nights before a Saturday contest, for example. And so we want to make sure that we work with our organizers to help them understand the benefits of why those events should be one of our KCBS one meat contests, because we know that teams will choose contests that have those versus contests that don't, if given a choice in a similar region over a similar time period, because they still count for the Master Series Team of the Year points race. So, you know, if you have an opportunity to go to a contest one weekend and pick up extra points in that category, whether it's ribs or chicken, I'm not sure how many contests are going to do them as pork and brisket, simply because of the cook times.
Right.
But they can. We've opened it up for next year. It would be great for like a standalone pork contest or a standalone brisket contest, you know, and I think that would be really fun.
You'll make it fun for like brisket,
Yeah.
you know, because hey, you've got to cook hot and fast because you don't have much time to turn it in. So you
Right?
know, I mean, yeah,
Right.
that would be kind of neat to see. I mean, yeah, it does make it harder to do a pork or rib or pork or brisket, but you know, it gives a cook another challenge,
Yes.
right? To do. So I'm
Yep.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, no, I think that these are going to be really exciting. So we are definitely going to be talking to our organizers about them. You know, I would say, because I know you have a lot of cooks that listen in, talk to your organizers about it and suggest that they add one on. That's actually how several of the rib contests that we ended up having, especially in the last half of the season, you know, different cook teams talked to the organizers and said, hey, have you heard about this? This would be a great thing to add to your contest. So I would encourage all of you to talk to organizers of the contest you like to go to consider adding one of these on. I think they've been really well received. I know some of our Mid-Atlantic and Southeastern cooks recently, over the last couple of weekends, have had some opportunities for those, and we heard glowing remarks. And yet, it's also a way to add another level of challenge. I mean,
Mhm.
you talk about, even for very experienced cooks, adding something like that on is just yet one more layer of excitement to prove that you're an excellent pitmaster.
I agree. Like I say, it's just another challenge. It's something else that, and you know, I know a lot of organizers add on some of the other category or whatever uh, to raise money, right?
Yep.
That's the way they help to raise money. So is that
Yeah.
something an organizer can do in these single category contests? Is it an easier way to add more money to what they're raising money for or whatever, or is it something that
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, for ribs, for example, this would be a perfect instance where an organizer could say, we'd love for you to, in addition to cooking what you're going to cook to turn in for the rib contest, then maybe the other ones they turn in and do some sort of a buck a bone or a people's choice type of thing. Those are great opportunities for an organizer. Again, knock on wood, I guess it's all going to depend on how events come back, with the
right?
public there. But I do believe that they will. At some point next year, we'll start to see a little bit more, and it'll probably vary by region. But again, these are great ways of doing that because, and for a cook, you can participate in that kind of thing to help support your organizer, but not during your full-on Master Series cook, which I know a lot of times people are, that's what I'm here to do. I don't want the distractions, let me focus on the cook.
But if I'm
So,
getting points for it, if I'm going to get those extra points for the category, I think that makes a whole different
yep,
uh, changes the ballgame. So
absolutely.
you just brought up 2021. What do you and KCBS? What do y'all see next year looking like?
Yeah. Well, I still think it's going to be challenging. I'll say that. But I think it's going to be brighter. I really do. We're starting to see some of the contests that normally would be getting things scheduled this time of year. They're coming back. We had worked with a lot of our organizers to move some of their contest dates for next year, and they're coming back. So those things are looking very positive. We're starting to see some increases in renewals and things like that. So I think people are still cautiously optimistic. I, for one, am cautiously optimistic, but more optimistic than not. Um, so I think, I do think the first quarter or two are still probably going to be a little more probably like what we've seen in 2020. I mean, at this point, even for example, until we continue to see things decrease in terms of cases and stuff like that, I don't see us changing or pulling back on our emergency procedures. We are certainly monitoring and talking about that as we go, but for now, we're going to keep doing that to keep people being able to do what they love safely. So anyway, it's a long answer to your question, but I do think things are going to improve for next year.
Are you seeing in a certain region or regions that are getting more, or that are sending in more applications for contests next year, or how is that? Do you have any data on that of where the contests are going to be in the first, second quarter of next year?
Well, the first answer I would say is go to the KCBS website. That's the best place to go for finding your contests by date. Um, I will say we've seen some interesting things happen even this year that I think will continue next year, and that would be the pop up contests that we've seen. So, for example, the campground series and the Rufus Teague series,
Mhm.
those literally came from, this is an opportunity. This is what people are comfortable with right now. Let's do several of them. And so
Right.
I see things like that continuing to expand for next year as well. And I'd love to see those types of things happen in other regions. I mean, something like that in Texas would be unbelievable.
Right.
Something like that, even in California or the Pacific Northwest, that would be unbelievable as long as they can get all of the wildfires under control.
Right.
What a weird year everywhere.
Everything. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's something that we're looking at the Atlanta Barbecue Store. We're trying to, I've looked and seen what the Rufus Teague has done. And, I think it's great that, I mean, because it's something that you can partner with KCBS in and
Yeah.
have something go on. And it's something that we're looking at doing next year, hopefully do something fun like that. here for the Atlanta barbecue store. Because
Yeah.
we want to see barbecue grow. As you mentioned earlier, it's got to continue to grow. We got to have new judges come in. We have to have new teams come in. And I think, Bill, yes, Bill, there Texas is very important to KCBS and
Yes, Bill.
all of us in the barbecue world. So, um, but I think the backyard team of the year that y'all have done has been really good to grow the sport, and it shows that you care about trying to grow the sport. Is there anything else that you could see that KCBS could do, or organizers could do, or local people like us can do to help grow the sport of barbecue, competitive barbecue, so we can get that grassroots going?
Yeah. I honestly think you talk about grassroots. I think it literally takes all of us. Grab a friend. Grab a friend when you're going to a contest and show them what you do. If you've got somebody that you know in your neighborhood, for example, who's really interested, show them what the backyard series is all about. Get them to come out and do their first contest. Honestly, one of the reasons I like the one meat contest so much is if you do it as a standalone. Well, actually, even if it's the night before, it gives people the opportunity that maybe would be intimidated to dip their foot in their toe in the water with a Master Series contest, right? It gives more people an opportunity to try. Likewise, people might be intimidated by cooking still, but grab a friend and take them to a judging class, or buy your friend a membership, a KCBS membership for Christmas. Things like that really help get people excited. And that's something that every single one of us can do.
Yeah,
I'm going to keep working with the board on driving programs and obviously trying to build partnerships with brands
yeah,
that help support the sport so that we can keep building great programs for all of you. But everybody who listens and everybody who comes into your store or any of that kind of stuff, everybody has a role to play. And
right.
so tell a friend, get somebody involved. I think one of the things that I have seen that I've really, really enjoyed seeing is even with nonprofits like Mission Zero 100 Hours and seeing what they do to get veterans involved and bring them out to a contest and give them an opportunity to learn how to cook with a very experienced pitmaster. Things like that. All of those types of programs matter, and help get people involved, because for most people, the minute they get that opportunity, whether it's their name called or that first bite at judging, they're hooked.
Yeah.
So everybody can help contribute to that.
That's great. We've got Tom Tilley on. He's the local. So there's high school teams popping up around, and uh,
Yes.
there's and he's the local Georgia. He's in charge of the Georgia high school barbecue, and he has a team. He's actually going out to the Invitational as a
Yes.
backyard, proud of him, and it's so cool to see. And it's neat to see the high school divisions popping up throughout the country. Um, and I know y'all play a part in that. And everybody says hooked, and the hook is expensive. It's right. Once you
It
hear that,
is. Yeah.
yeah, you just lost a lot of money. But it's great. It's a great it's a lot of fun. Um, but
Well, and I think the idea of high school is so exciting. And Tom, I know that you're going to be reaching out to me. I've already been told that, which is fantastic. Look forward to seeing you at the Invitational. Um, but
I didn't
again,
know
what's that?
I didn't know anything about that.
Oh no, he had reached out to the office today.
Okay.
Nope, it's all good. So, I think the more we can get high school involved, certainly even FFA, I think getting people in those groups involved are fantastic. I've got, so my alma mater for my master's in business is at the University of Missouri, and they actually have in their honors program, they've got a barbecue class that they do every year on the culture and history of barbecue. So I connected with them, and they're going to help us work on some thought processes for how you connect with collegiate, for more female, people of color. So they're going to help us think through that and develop some ideas for how to tap into those audiences for the future. So, I think there's so much we can do.
Oh yeah.
But again, time, resources, volunteers, it takes all of that. So,
Yep. And I know we're running short on time, but there's a couple more things I want to talk about. So we've got some people from Australia on. So you had the international. How was the international part of KCBS? What's going on internationally?
Yeah, I would say, this year, unfortunately, COVID has hit our international region probably worse than it has domestic. So, so many more contests have been canceled in those areas. But yet we have seen areas like Australia still continue to be able to have their contests. We do continue to work with the various organizers in those regions to try to help. I know in Australia, for example, we're trying to do more even with some of the organizers down there that are adding on backyard contests and things like that. So we definitely try to continue to, within the countries where we already have programs, continue to do additional things there. And certainly we would like to see the contests that we have had come back for 2021. It's going to be a challenge. I think especially in Europe, we've seen a lot of the countries in Europe have been really impacted. And so they're also more cautious, I guess, in terms of what they're willing to allow for contests to continue to happen. So it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen in 2021. I think we'll see some regions say, you know what, we're going to wait till 2022 before we bring things back.
Right. And that it is what it is, right?
It is what it is. Yeah.
Apparently there's a big full throttle ranch in Australia next June. Sounds like it's going to be a good one. And then so people are going to be there. And the other thing that I want to talk about, and then we'll wrap up because I know I've kept you on a long time tonight. Barbecue, the family atmosphere of barbecue and the friendships that are involved. What have you noticed as coming in to KCBS as the people of barbecue? Have you noticed anything about that friendship? And I know people have had, and from everybody that's talked on here, everybody's had wonderful things to say about you and how great of a job you're doing and how they all appreciate everything you've done. What can you say about the family aspect of barbecue?
Oh my gosh. That's like my favorite question. So thank you for saving it for the end. To me, barbecue is family. It's family, it's fun, and it's food. And honestly, I think that the food part almost comes last. I've been part of the barbecue family and blessed to be so for several years. I was actually just looking back through some American Royal photos on on all of my Facebook feeds and saw how my kids have grown. Even over the last several years. And I think one of the things that to me is the best about the barbecue family is that you are happy whether you get the call or whether the person next to you gets the call. And to me, that is really the spirit of what we need to do to grow into the future. It takes all of us working together and helping each other get there, whether that's teaching somebody a trick, going around and wishing them good luck on the day of a contest. If somebody has bad meat and you have an extra one, giving it to them, all of those types of things. I think about one of my favorite pictures in barbecue, and it's a picture that I took of Tuffy Stone helping Darren Worth carry up his trophies, because as Darren had just won the American Royal for, that's the second time. He's got two enormous trophies to carry up, this entire huge flight of stairs at the Kansas Speedway. And there's Tuffy carrying one of them like, I didn't win, but I got your back. And
Yeah.
I think that to me, that's like the perfect example of the barbecue family. And I love going to contests and seeing little kids, like to see Man Meat out there with their little kids, or to see the Shear girls when they come out, or Rub My Rack and their kids. It's just, to me, that is awesome, because it says that this truly is a family-friendly sport, and we're trying to teach the next generation to get involved. So those are the things that I love the most about the barbecue family.
And I have kids, right? So we get involved in the Kids Queue events, and I love the Kids Queue aspect of barbecue because it is a family atmosphere. It is. I mean, everything about it is about family and just seeing how these little kids come up and how much they love it and how they want to do what their parents are doing and get involved and just be a part of what we all enjoy doing. So my last question is, do you cook anything? Are you a cook? Or do you
I do a little cooking. I will say I don't do a tremendous amount. By the time I'm done and leave for the day, oh my goodness, I am exhausted. But I do very much enjoy. I would say my husband does more of the smoking or grilling in our house, but I am really mean with the sous vide, believe it or not. That is, I hate to admit this, but on our vacation, we actually packed that to take with us. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder what people think I have in my bag. But no, we do like to cook a lot at home. So we'll be smoking our turkey for Thanksgiving, that's for sure, just as many of our barbecue friends will.
That's awesome. Well, we have a turkey pack now. If anybody needs a turkey pack at a barbecue store, you'll find a brine and some rubs to use for turkey for this Thanksgiving. But Emily, thank you so much for the time that you spent with us tonight. And I know all of our viewers appreciate you coming on and being so candid with us and honest and transparent. I think it shows how KCBS cares, and when y'all want to and you want to do whatever it takes to make this sport the best it can possibly be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I look forward to seeing a lot of your listeners next week in Mayetta, Kansas, and hope everybody has a safe trip getting there.
Well, I appreciate it. And if they see you, come say hello. You're very friendly. We've never met, and you've been awesome tonight. So thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Y'all have a wonderful night, and we will see you next Monday night on Chewin the BBQ Fat. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.